In today's video, we'll be solving numerous equations. You'll definitely want your multiplication table. You're solving the equation. The first problem, I'm going to go over actually 6 examples, and you're just going to have 3 problems to do. Okay, so you're solving 2x to the third power minus 162x equals 0. So now x is to the third power. Well, that means there's now 3 answers. Now write what you have. You know you have the x is to the third, and it's also to the first. Okay? So you're still going to have to apply your factoring principles. Factoring. So you make sure you're set at 0, which you are. And how many terms do we have? We have 2. That's 2 terms, or you can write binomial. Write either one. You don't write them both. Binomial or 2 terms, whatever you like better. So, 2 terms, remember how it's set up. I go GCF, and then I definitely don't go to the T-chart. I'm checking for a difference of perfect squares. Question mark, and then I make 2 parentheses, 1 plus, 1 minus. Okay, so we check the last term for a letter, and we have that X there. We check the front for a negative, it's not there. Now 2 and 162. So here's 2. Now my chart's not big enough to put 162. Okay? So what I need to do then is do the test, some testing. Okay, so what row was I looking at? What row was I looking at? I was looking at row 2. Okay? Okay, now do a test, okay? 2 divided by 2 is 1, we know that. Okay, and that's not a decimal, so I want to stick with 2. So I put a 2 out here, and I have to remember to put the x with it, because the GCF's 2x. So really, if the number runs out of room, just put that number on the bottom, divide. If it's a decimal, you erase it, okay? You're not going to be able to put it. But if it's not, you're going to put that number there. Remember to put the x variable there with it. Okay, so I'm dividing, cross out the x's there, not here though. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Now it's not x to the second divided by x, it's x to the third divided by x. So what would x to the third divided by x be? Well, let's actually show it. X to the third means x times x times x. And then this is just x to the first, and these would cancel. Now how many x's are left? There are 2. So it'd be 1x to the second. Now I divide negative 162 by 2, it's negative 81, so I express that as minus 81. And then remember to bring over your 2x, cross it off, and look to the next step. Okay, you need that there, don't forget to put it there. So difference of perfect squares, well I have the minus, and if I have a 1 in front of x, don't do it. Well, x to the second's a perfect square, that's x times x. 81, that's 9 times 9. So you bet this is, so it's x, 9, 9. So I put those 2 parentheses alongside my 2x. Now we have an x here, so that's f1, that's f2, that's f3. Okay, so all these need to be set equal to 0 because we have an x in that first one. So 2x equals 0. X plus 9 equals 0, x minus 9 equals 0. So we divide by 2, and that would be 0, because that means 2 times x. Plus 9, we'd minus 9, that would be negative 9. Minus 9, you plus 9, and that would be positive 9. There's your 3 answers. Okay, next problem, we have x to the third power minus 100x equals 0. So now that x is to the third power, I know there are now 3 answers. Okay, so you have x to the third and you have x to the first. No x to the second though, that's good, I guess. Okay, so we're applying factoring because we have these still can't be combined. And you're set at 0. So now how many terms? We have 1, 2. So it's again 2 terms. You can either write that there's 2 terms or write binomial. Okay. So 2 terms, same as up here, GCF. And then the difference of perfect squares with a question mark. Because remember from the last assignment, sometimes I cross that out if it's not. Okay, so I have a variable there. I do not have a negative there. 1 and 100. Now, look, 1, you know 100, it's eventually going to get to 100. So it would just be 1, but you have 1x down, okay? So you're doing it. So you go up and divide by 1x. Cancel those. So 1 divided by 1 is 1. X to the third divided by x, I'm going to show again how that works. There's 2 x's remaining, so it'd be x to the second. And then negative 100 divided by 1 is negative 100, so I apply minus 100. So I put that GCF there, 1x. You could take the 1 off the x if you wanted to. You can leave it there or take it off. It doesn't really matter, okay? But I want to see it there. Okay, then when I'm checking for the dops, I have the minus. If I have a 1 in front of the variable, I don't need that there. X to the second, I know by now that's x times x. And then 100 is 10 times 10. Okay, so we have x, 10, 10. Okay, so x plus 10, x minus 10. And all of these contain x, f1, f2, f3. So x equals 0. If you have the 1 in front, that's fine. You're just going to divide by 1. It's 0 divided by 1, still 0. Okay. So you have 0. If you left the 1 in front, you just divide by 1. It's 0 divided by 1 would still be 0. Then minus 10, that would be negative 10. Then plus 10, that would be positive 10. Okay, then there's a blank paper on the back side. Okay, my next problem, we have 2x to the third power minus 4x to the second power minus 30x equals 0. A little bit of different ball game here. So there's 3 answers. Because of x to the third. Now we have an x third, we have an x to the second, and we have an x. So obviously those are 3 that can't be combined, so I'm going to factor. 0, you're set. Now you have 3 terms, not 2, so this is a trinomial. Or you can write 3 terms. So trinomial's GCF, but then I have to do the t-tables. Much as some of you hate that, that's the only way to factor a trinomial. So the last term does have an x. First term does not have a negative. Then 2, 4, and 30. So 2 would be your 2, 4, 30. So you bet 2. Okay, so I saw it from my chart. So I go up and divide by 2x. The x's cancel there. Always on the last one is where they cancel. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. Now x to the third divided by x. That's x second. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. X second divided by x. So x second means x times x divided by x. You have x left over. And then negative 30 divided by 2 is negative 15. Now, put that over here, 2x, and continue with your t-tail, but now ABC is coming from here. So 1 times a negative 15, 1 times negative 15 is negative 15, okay? So, we know that's a mismatch, positive, negative. We have to add the factors to negative 2. So start dividing. 15 divided by 1 is 15. That is negative 14 if you add them. 15 divided by 2, decimal. 15 divided by 3 is 5. So you have a 3 and a 5. Now add those. That's it. Okay. Now, what's your A? Your A is 1x to the second. Okay. Now I'm going to do something a little new. I am going to set up my 4 parentheses. Okay. So plus 3 with a minus 5. Now x second. Put x, x, don't keep it x to the second. Now 1, 1. Okay, question, do you really think that you can, 1 and 3, you could divide them by 1, or you can just drop it, or you can just cross that out. Doesn't matter to me. It's going to be 1x plus 3. It doesn't divide down, okay? Take the 1 off the x, and it's x plus 3. Okay, now how about here? 1 and 5, I don't think that, again, if 1's the smallest number, it's probably not going to divide down. So you can just drop, you can drop that in there, you can divide by 1, whatever, as long as you get x minus 5 down. I don't really care. Now you're good to go. We have x in every one of my factors, so that's why there's 3 answers. So 2x could equal 0. So you would divide by 2 and get 0. X plus 3 is 0, so I would subtract 3, and that would be negative 3. And then x minus 5 could equal 0. I would add 5, and that would be positive 5. Okay. Next problem, 3 left. 3x to the third power minus 27x to the second power plus 42x equals 0. So you have x to the third, that tells you that there's 3 answers. So we have the x to the third, we have the x to the second, we have x too, okay? So obviously we're going to factor. That's 3 different x terms that cannot be combined. So we have to use our factoring properties. Okay, that's 3 terms. Again, it's a trinomial. Trinomial means it has 3 terms. So GCF, and then my table. Okay, we do have x in the last term. The last of the 3 terms has x. We do not have a negative in the first term. 3, 27, and 42. So here's 3, here's 27, here's 42. So we would take a 3 out along with the x. Now go up and divide by 3x. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. X to the third divided by x is x second. If you know that right away, you don't have to do what I just did. Negative 27 divided by 3 is negative 9. X, then you got to divide your x's. Then x. Before we do the last one, those x's cancel. Okay, and then 42 divided by 3 is going to be 14. So put your GCF 3x right there. Cross it out because now the trinomial is down. Okay, you have factored it down. 1 times 14 is 14. It'd be positive, so that's a match. So just put 2 signs that match. Go back and add them later. You have to add to what your b is. You're adding to whatever the b is, which is negative 9. So start dividing. 14 divided by 1 is 14. Negative 1 plus negative 14 is negative 15. That's not going to work. 14 divided by 2 is 7. So 2, 7. Add those. See if you get your negative 9. Pretty sure you do. Yep. And I want it negative 9, so I'm keeping them the same. Now your A is not 3, it's now 1. 1x to the second power. Okay. So minus 2, minus 7, and as always we put the x times the x, and then the 1, okay, you can put 1 in front. So 1 and 2, they'd just be in the 1 row. You can divide by 1, that's fine, but really it's just going to stay the same, so there's not much of a point, and the same with that one, okay. I would recommend you take the 1s off the front of the x's. So you'd have x minus 2, x minus 7 equals 0. So f1, f2, f3. So 3x could equal 0, x minus 2 could equal 0, x minus 7 could equal 0. So I'm going to divide by 3, and that would be 0. I'm going to plus 2, and that would be 2. I'm going to plus 7, and that would be 7. 0, 2, and 7. Okay, then the last page, 3 for a little loop here because I want to show you something. Negative 16x to the second power plus 46x plus 6 equals 0. Now there's two answers, okay, because it's x to the second. So there are not 3. So you're set. You still have to use your factoring principles. So you have 3 terms. That's 3 terms. That's a trinomial. Either write trinomial, or something that tells me that there's 3 terms. So GCF and table. Okay, check your last term. I'm not seeing x. Check your first term. I am seeing a negative. Okay. 1646, 6. So here's 6. I'm not seeing either one of the other two. Nope, not in 3. And then 6 is in 2's row. There's a 16. And there's 46. So it would be 2. I'd put a 2 with the negative. So I'd go divide by negative 2. Okay, so that makes positive 8. Now you're not dividing by an x, so you keep it as x to the second. And that's negative 23. Not dividing it by an x, so you keep the x. And then 6 divided by negative 2 is negative 3. That's just going to be a constant. Now, cross that out, place it over here. So A, B, C. 8 times negative 23. That is negative 24. So it's a mismatch. Just put 2 signs that mismatch, because for 2 numbers to multiply by a negative, they have to mismatch. We're adding to try to make negative 23. So 124. I think that's it. I think I'm good. Okay. So what's your A now? Your A is 8x to the second power. So we put the plus 1, the minus 24. Then I go xx, and then I apply coefficients of 8 in front of each x. Now the 8x plus 1 you can't really do anything with, okay? Now you can just drop it down. You can divide it by 1. I mean 1 and 8, you can divide it by 1, that's fine. But the bottom line is you're going to have 8x plus 1 over here. Now 8 and 24, I don't think you get that luck. You're not going to have that because you have 8 and you have 24. So divide by 8. You can divide those by 1 if you feel comfortable just doing that every time. That's fine. It'll just stay the same. So that's going to be 1x minus 3. Now, the 8 has to stay in front of the x here, but if we have a 1, we can discard it. So it's going to be x minus 3. Okay, this does not, I don't use this. It doesn't have x. It's just F1, F2. F1, that does not get an F label. So 8x plus 1 equals 0. X minus 3 equals 0. So first I'm going to have to minus the 1. Takes us to negative 1. Then I divide by 8. You can write the decimal, or you can go second PRB. Doesn't matter to me. Then the other one, you plus 3, and you get 3. Okay, last example. Negative 16x to the second power plus 16x plus 96 equals 0. So now it's x to the second, so there are 2 answers. And you have x to the second, you also have x, so you have to factor. Okay. Okay, so we're set, and we have 3 terms. GCF. table. No x, there is a negative, put a negative. Now check 16 and 96. So here's 16 and there's a 96, so it would be 16. Okay. Not x though. You're not able to take an x because that last thing didn't have x. You go negative 16, negative 16, negative 16. So that would make positive 1. The x second is not being divided, so it remains. Negative 1, the x isn't being divided, it remains. And this divided by this is negative 6. Okay, so cross it out, but remember to place it over here. Then ABC. So 1 times negative 6 is negative 6. Okay, so mismatch again. And we have to add to get to negative 1. Start 6 divided by 1 is 6. 1 plus negative 6 is not, it's negative 5, so that won't work. 6 divided by 2 is 3, so 2 with 3. Now add them. If I put a 2 plus a negative 3, that is negative 1. We have it. Okay. Now your A, remember the A is now 1x to the second. Okay. Plus 2 minus 3, x second, and then the 1, 1, 1. Now 1 and 2 are just in the first row. You can divide them both by 1 if it makes you feel better, but it's really just going to stay the same, okay? So it's just going to be x plus 2. At 1 and 3, same thing, okay? If it makes you feel good, divide by 1 and putting it there, fine, okay? But it'll stay x minus 3. I'm taking the 1s away. I usually do that. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Remember, but this is not used. That doesn't get an F label. These do. It only gets an F label if it has the variable inside. So x plus 2 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0. Minus 2, you get negative 2. Plus 3, x equals 3.